Audra!
Nicholas, what's up?
So, yeah, I went to put something together for you, and then I haven't stopped, actually. I just scraped enough grease off my face to be able to drive. So, here's where I'm at right now. It's frustrating because, like, I get so close to knowing, like, what I need to do, and then it's just pressing buttons till it happens.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do now is, like, so I'm sure you've heard of, like, FileMaker, right?
I'm having a real hard time hearing you.
Oh. I don't know how to fix that. Have you heard of FileMaker?
FileMaker?
Yeah.
Is that I assume that's some sort of software?
Yeah, it's a application developer. Primarily ran on Macs, and dang it. And basically, it's like it's the cheap version of, like, subpar soft, like, application development. You just draw boxes and it allows you to attach a query to it, and then references things.
Right. I'm reading about it right now.
But I found this one SQL tool that I freaking love. It's called, man, some SQL. I just cannot think of it right now. But it has a lot of good tools, including the ability to create drivers. It has, like, a lot of drivers and for a lot of the various different types of databases. And I can basically take I can basically take a dump file and create, probably, like, have to create my own schema and then just map things right, and then I can import that into FileMaker. So, and then create some type of, like, MVP that, because the problem is that it's not super clear what I want yet.
Right.
Which is, you're probably one of the very few people that I would be that open about that, with having spent so much freaking time.
Well, I do the same thing sometimes, so.
Well, it keeps
You feel bad, you're like, wait, I've spent all this time, but that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, but
But sometimes
learned a
the
ton.
process is what is necessary to figure out what you're doing.
Yeah. And I honestly feel like a badass right now. Pretty badass with, after talking to the company today that actually develops the program I'm migrating from. They're like, well, we can't help you out a lot right now because this is proprietary stuff. I'm like, what? I'm looking right at it. Yeah, but it's proprietary. We've never had anybody do this before. And then
that made you feel good.
I was saying what I was doing, and then they were like, yeah, we actually had somebody do that with us once, and he had a company. He actually made a company out of it. I was like, damn, I've been doing this for 3 days. Yes. So I didn't feel as bad after that because I felt like I was like, you know, just treading and
It's always fun talking to software companies or tech companies, and you're like, but I want to do this, and they're like, you can't. I'm like, yes, I can do that. Just you can either help me or not. Usually they're just like, why would you even think that that might be possible? And you're like, because everything is.
yeah, everything is possible for sure. And but it does sound like
I mean, you've decoded the database, right? I mean, you haven't had any trouble doing that once you figured that out, right?
well, so there's the database, which is fine, but then there's the then there's the files then there's the database that the SQL database stores files into somehow.
Right.
And
So file attachments to the database.
yeah,
Access those.
and they're hashed and what have you.
Well, you still have access to the front end of this database, right?
Yeah, so
The original front end.
yeah, I'm assuming that all the keys to decrypt or whatever is actually within the database.
Probably. And or I mean, if you've got the front end and you're probably only storing files in certain tables in certain places, you could probably do like an ad hoc something on top just to output those.
You know how much they charge for that?
Well, I mean, why would they have to? You don't have access to the database stuff?
No, I do. That's why I'm saying
Right.
screw.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, what I'm asking is you can see the files at some level. You're unable to decrypt them from the bottom level right now.
Right.
You can only just view them at the top level.
Right. And I assume that in the title itself there's some reference to where it goes, you know. I don't know how. That's something I wanted to ask you, how how a database, is it just linked right into the file system of the server it's on, and then it's just yeah, how would that work? How is it storing attachments? Like, what's the process?
I mean, in some way, as far as the SQL database is concerned, the SQL's got to just be storing some kind of reference.
Yes, and I've seen that. And they're
Right.
stored on the actual server.
And then that's referencing somewhere else. And if it's got some kind of encryption on it, that would be the interesting thing. But it's done.
Yeah, I don't know. There's multiple different quote unquote encryption issues, but one's something called HL7, which there's I guess programs that sit on top of something to decrypt that. I don't know. It's common in healthcare, anything HIPAA related, though. Did I ever tell you how many tables there were?
No, how many?
2,600.
That's a few.
Yeah. Which is why one of the frustrating things, because that's one of the most frustrating things, because there's so many key columns. or primary keys or whatever that, and they're, I mean, I can't get a good feel of what all's there because of that, if that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, I've gotten pretty damn intimate with it, though. That's for sure. I accidentally spent $500 on Google Cloud. I kind of need to call them today. Do you not feel well or something? You don't sound like your normal.
I'm tired. I had a migraine last couple of days.
Oh, that sucks.
So I'm not exactly
Yeah,
high-speeded right now.
yeah.
I'll be back to moving faster in a couple of days.
Have you ever used it? I mean, I'm sure you have. How much Amazon Web Service have you used?
In peripheral ways, I mean, plenty. I haven't worked directly with it, but considering everybody and their dog uses it, I'm really not scared by it.
Oh, I didn't say it because of that.
No, I'm just. I mean, I
It's
haven't.
I don't,
I haven't had a reason to actually put anything on there. No. It's easy to accidentally put too much stuff in there.
it's easy to spend way too much money on that shit. Yeah, I accidentally had like a ginormous query machine on, like big data machine, big table on for like 3 days, and it racked up $400 in 3 days doing nothing.
Yeah, that's no bueno.
No. But yeah, that it's called HL7 is that encryption thingy-majigger.
So are the files themselves supposedly encrypted that way, or I mean, do you know what is where it's supposed to be encrypted at?
I haven't even looked.
Obviously, the tables aren't. So
There's just a lot of rows that are just straight hash code, whatever. That's why I was
But did you show me something with like a hash key or a encryption key or something?
yeah, there's several of those. Like I said, I think it's just a matter of mapping them all. Like it
Well,
seems.
it's one of those things. If you've got a set of encryption keys and you've got a set of things that need to be decrypted by encryption keys, and we could set something up that even if there's multiple decryption keys, we could probably set, especially since it's just plain text, can set up some sort of thing that runs through it and goes, hey, try these encryption keys and run all this data through all these encryption keys in a decryption Because I'm sure there's some sort of standard, decryption algorithm if you've got
Yes.
the key. And so we could just, I mean, if I was doing this, I would just build some sort of little, robot that takes all that and runs it through, and then you see what you're like. Well, this one translated into actual words, so that was probably the right decryption key.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't super. It's just the fact that they were calling it like their head of like their actual technical people were talking about the model itself and their software like they were, made me think that there's not going to be a whole lot of issues with just completely like cutting it apart. There's actually like I feel like I'm taking apart a car or something.
Your taking part databases are kind of like that. You're like, I got all these parts, except you don't know what the car looked like.
Well, it's what's interesting is that, well, the idea that I'm going to strip down an old legacy server ERP whatever program and then recreate it in about a week is awfully tasty sounding. Because with FileMaker, I can recreate the whole kind of idea of Mac practice or what the place it's coming from, except have accessibility easily to the database, and it can be hosted on the cloud and mobile and things like that.
Right. Have you actually looked up the HL7 standards? Because I don't know that it's it was written by like HL7, but it's actually a set of standards and like namings. It's like naming standards and different things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know there's a key.
It might help decrypt a few things.
That's what I was saying, like some kind of interface to run some plugin or something is what I was thinking. But I've gone about this the dumbest way you possibly can. Like, really, if I just would have sat down, SQL is not that difficult to learn at all. Really, if I would just sit down and like study SQL, I mean, because it's like I respect it. Like, it's a legit, like, it's powerful.
Yeah, it's standard too. So if you can run a SQL database, you'll be able to run like 75 or 80% of all databases out there.
Or at least the other 20 should come pretty easy, right?
The other 20 what percent?
If you do, once you do get proficient in SQL,
yeah, I mean, most things run on SQL. There's a few newer type database designs like Mongo and stuff, which is a totally different. Yeah, it's a totally different model, so it's a bit different. But
And what's NoSQL?
It's probably just another SQL version. There's a ton of them. Oh, NoSQL or non-relational.
Yeah. That seems more my style. Non-relational. Just put it
Yeah,
all.
what? Mongo's non-relational.
Mongo
So, yeah.
is?
Yeah.
That seems a little. I can do that.
Mongo's interesting. I've used it a little bit. Yeah, instead of having to design it tracks things to itself. Like you have a thing and then it tracks other things relative to itself, and it works a lot like you don't know what I'm talking about, like Python dictionaries or something.
I'm so envious of you and your coding. Python
Yeah.
seems easy to pick up.
Yeah, I like Python.
Compared to some others.
There's less syntax to remember, but there's also less. It doesn't catch you if you mess up as much. So if you're accurate with what you know about it, then you'll be fine. And if you're inclined to forget all of it and never do it right, then something with a little more complex syntax is actually better. But I think Python is better. I think it's more ENTP friendly. You don't have to remember as much stuff. You just kind of make things happen.
Real stupid question.
Okay.
Can you explain REST to me? A REST API and how that's different than maybe not REST?
It's some sort of web thing, RESTful. It's just I would say it's a standardized web interface.
Because that, I mean, I really want to have an API map to all the objects within the database so that I could do just like calls with other programs and stuff. Did I missay that?
Maybe. So an API is a standardized way of doing things so that different things can talk to each other without knowing anything else about them.
Yes, that's what I want. I want to be able to have like AOP tokens.
You want to be able to do what? I couldn't hear you.
Something about tokens.
Tokens.
I want to be able to have. Gosh, I look so beat down. I want to be able to talk with other programs.
Okay. Well, I mean, it depends a lot on what you want to do, whether you want things to be able to read, write. I mean, because there's a lot of ways to do all of this.
I know. I think what's important is
the question is to figure out what you want to be able to do, and then since you're basically at a raw stage anyway, is actually figure out, you're like, all right, design your system, or at least the portions of your system you understand, and go, okay, this is what we need, this is what needs to happen, and this will make us all happy next year as well as tomorrow.
Yes, which is why.
'Cause that's a big deal. Because I mean, the thing about like your database is you may or may not. I mean, for future data storage, do you even want to store it in the form that it's currently stored in? That would be a big question.
I want to. Well, that's something I know. I know the right question. The right answer is yes. I need some type of database like this. I guess it'd be a lot easier if I knew where to find everything, and if it wasn't in. So like, I mean, there's like 100 tables that should be one, or
Right. Well, see, the thing about finding it is one thing. So just data mining your current database is one thing. Building
yeah,
an interface that can add new information to it is a whole nother thing.
right. But I'm thinking it as what am I going to be able to like be comfortable with? That's going to make sense as far as like um, I want to do what's going to be the more standard operating procedure with having a database that isn't such a mess that I can you know interact with, because there's a lot of there's a lot of integration software out there. Like I'm not worried about the communication with this. I mean, I am worried about having something that I can just hook up to Zapier or something, and if I'm still using Google Sheets or Infusionsoft or something, have some kind of API hook that's able to pull data from the database and then somehow update it for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, it's one of those things with a raw database like you've got, you're going to have some sort of intermediary that knows how the database is designed in order to meaningfully insert data into it.
Right.
So more or less what you're doing is you're coming out from under that custom built.
Yeah.
And so you've either got to build a new thing to handle that database, or you need to come up with a new database and interface system that you're going to use instead, and then migrate the data into that, or design a new database and a new interface over the top of it and put the data in that.
Probably the latter.
Because I find it unlikely that you want to use that database in the form that it's in.
Fuck no.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So you either need to pick a software and a ready-made type database and interface that you want to use, or you've got to build your own database and interface over it.
What I'm doing right now is focusing on getting it in a more friendly database that I can have an interactive front end with, meaning I can query right from the front end, which is FileMaker. And then I think that'll allow me to have a much better feel for what is in there.
So I mean,
because
you don't want to put too much effort into just getting a play with level. Because if you're not going to use the structure of the database, you don't want to build your interface until you know what the structure is going to be. Because otherwise you're just wasting time building something for something you're not going to use.
It's not entirely accurate, but more accurate than I want it to be.
Well, it's one of those things, like, because, I mean, if you're just doing something for yourself to play with and more or less an interface to mine the data that's in there, then you should just, afterwards build yourself a little command line machine or something that kind of understands what's going on. The most
What?
some sort of little, I mean, you could build some sort of little simple, not fancy interface just for you that'll help you mine the data, but won't worry too much. Won't be built for inserting data. It's just
Exactly.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then
I'm thinking
later
like,
you can decide what you're going to do with the data long term as far as actual operational moving forwardness.
that's my plan.
Okay. That's what it sounded like to me, but I want to make sure that I was right.
Just it makes sense to me, but I know that I'm dipping in and out of insanity. Like,
You're looking at too many places at once, which I understand. And I'm trying to parse them out.
well,
It's
I'm
actually
just
kind of
wildly.
hilarious to watch you because I'm like, the way you're going about things, I know exactly how that works.
I'm. I have a hard time believing you'd be this messy.
I can be. If I get properly obsessed. Depends on the mood I'm in. And also depends on if I'm working with other people. If I'm
I guess
working with other people, I have a tendency to be organized. If it's just me, I go crazy. I'm all over the place. But in some areas I know better, but
well, I think you would take. You'd be more patient. You slow. I mean, I'm super inefficient right now.
I usually go through a stage where I basically just poke things until I kind of get a feel for what, and then I come up with a plan.
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
Test a few like vectors of moving forward. You're like, all right, I know all of these possible things that might work, and you're like, poke around. You're like, all right, this is the better track. This is the one I need to be looking at. Oh.
Overall, what's really important to me is having something that is scalable and that allows for us to take advantage of some of the other, like, you can't get one software program that's really good at everything.
Right. Well, if you're capable of managing your own database and therefore controlling the flows to various software systems,
Yeah, that I am.
that would be probably good. Like, it's one of those things, if you can take care of your own database, then you don't have to worry about other things messing it up or cross-pollinating different databases with software and different things like that.
That is the end goal. And
well, it sounds like to me like stage one is data mine the database you've got on a very,
it's a
simply
pleasant
functional level, right? And then you've got to design your future system and how things are going to interact with each other and how you want to store your data moving forward.
Well, and that's the thing that I'm a bit more confident in.
And then you can, like I said, if you're going to build your own database, you can design and build a database, and then you can design and build a interface over the top of it.
Well, and what happens with me when I get this, like, obsessed with something and go real balls deep in it, I slow down to a pace that I'm not really typically at. So I actually get a chance to, like, mull everything over. And the stuff that hits me during the first hour, the first day, embarking on the journey, 2 weeks prior, is finally all that information finally, you know,
Starting to make sense.
about, well, being looked at even.
Right.
Not I haven't given it a chance to make sense yet. I mean,
You're noticing that it's there. Yeah.
oh, where the fuck is I mean, I'm so gross right now.
I like that tree. That's a nice tree.
A tree?
Yeah, there was a tree above you, like on in the window that was above you.
Thing's about to fall any second.
That tree is a nice tree. Goodbye, nice tree. I'm gonna miss you. What were you guys talking about?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about.
Do our bidding.
There must have been a lot of subtext because it sounded more like talking about code, not so much talking about acquired minions. Although maybe it was implied.
Yeah, that usually doesn't require restatement. It's a constant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also want to get to the point where, like, I feel like I'm making use of your time on that. Like, you know what I mean?
I guess so.
Well, I'm not done playing yet, and I'm not going to pay both of us to play, especially when my playing ends a lot earlier than yours. But I'm still trying to figure out where that cutoff is because I don't know. I'll tell you what, though, this has really made me want to sell a technical product.
What have you enjoyed most about it?
The challenge and my it's nice to I've always been attracted to software and technology, and I feel as though I have a good understanding. I like solving problems, and I think I have a good understanding of a lot of it, but a really big lack of understanding with the really important stuff like code. And I've been able to kind of muddle my way through some of that and learn. And I guess it's just been fun. in a really painful way. I just like being hyper focused. Truthfully,
It's always the best.
I haven't shown a whole lot of insanity in that regard lately, so it's nice to see it come out. Like, there's my madness.
Yeah, hyperfocus is can be fun.
I was about to say, I bet you get that too, Ken. Right? INFJs seem like they would be.
I get hyperfocused less because it requires actual action of some sort to, or it's something to focus on. I mean, so I get it on occasion, but when I find it, I tend to enjoy it. I think. I'm not sure because now I'm thinking about it abstractly, and it's one of those things that it's like when I'm in it, I know if I like it, but it's like talking about it right now, I'm having difficulty coming up with examples.
You have difficulty what?
Coming up with examples in my head of like what it feels like or whatnot, because I don't actually remember.
It presents itself in different ways.
Yeah.
It can be just through conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the other night I was talking to Audra about like she was giving me writing tips and whatnot, and she started bringing up something in reference to like a certain writing style, and it sort of clicked in my head, and I was able to be super excited and talk about that for like an extra hour.
I had that happen once with when I got really deep into Hunter S. Thompson journalism. Crazy content. All right, so you're getting serious about that, Ken. I heard you talk about it several times now lately.
Yeah, it's like it's compared to just sort of doing what I've done for the last several years, which is just sort of sitting around and waiting to die. I mean, from like a bird's eye view, that's what it looks like. Is I'm just sort of like hanging around, like, you know, what are you interested in? What are you doing? It's like, well, nothing much. I'm just, you know, sort of hanging out. Yeah, it's like it's compared to that. I don't know, it's giving me something to focus on. I really haven't done much writing. I gotta actually do that.
About it. That kind of
There's like mental blocks to overcome because it's like it's not only with writing. I feel like I approach many situations saying, "Oh, there's a way to do this," but I don't actually have enough experience to know, you know, the quote unquote proper way to do something. So really, I just ought to do it and see what sticks.
Well, that's a blessing. That's nice. There's a lot of things where I just need to like point where I get to where I don't know how to do something, but I'm concentrating on all the ways to do it, and it's just like a lot of time wasted.
Like when it really isn't that hard to write a CV, but you spend like 2 hours looking at examples on the internet just to see what you could be doing for a job that you probably already have.
Well,
that you're really just going through the motions for.
I thought it'd be fun to play doctor, and it's not. I could have had more fun with that. Now I want to play software designer, and then I'm going to play businessman again, and then maybe doctor again, while businessman. But it takes quite a it's not the fun kind of sales where you're playing the role of the doctor, because like 80% of the conversation is just you trying to get taken seriously. but it's increasingly difficult when I don't take myself seriously. So. But like coming off as a all things medical and that I should be listened to rather than the doctor who did not say the right things to the person, which is why they're there. Outperforming them and then talking.
Cutting out a little bit. Or his phone died or something. Or he dropped it. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I started probably like 20 trials, various software programs in the last 2 days. So that was one of the many salespeople that I've called so far. I guess, Audra, one thing I did want to say, though, is that I want to automate a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to create algorithms that know what kind of, like I want to start, I want to know what kind of people, I want to know what kind of people are, why people stop coming back in and who the happiest kind of customer is, and automated scheduling and things like that.
Right. I mean, if you're wanting to build like some sort of thing from scratch, I mean, that's doable. You can build all that functionality in there.
Oh, I have complete faith in doing that kind of craziness, but that's actually one of my fears. Like, you are not going to be the person you're going to be totally. I feel like I'll come up with some ridiculous shit, and you'll be not the right person to tell me
That you shouldn't do it?
Yeah, there's like way more low-hanging fruit out there, Nick.
The thing to do is to prioritize and to encapsulate different things. Because I know how it is, and you're like all the things at the same time.
Yeah.
And come up with all the things and brainstorm, and then go back through and prioritize and figure out what's most important and what you can separate from each other so that you can do bits and pieces and do, like if you're developing something, what they call agile or whatever, where you do what is necessary, and then you continually add functionality and stuff as as you go down the priority list.
And sprints. We'll make a ticket system and everything. But what I could really see myself doing is charging for this kind of stuff to other, because like at some point in time I'm going to be doing a lot of networking with other doctors, and I know how just absolutely terrible of a setup they have.
Well, there's all kinds of they all need help fixing these things. And honestly, right now, the health tech med tech is, there's so much broken out there.
Yeah.
and yet they're being forced to use it. So it's like such a like mixed up volatile. Like it's the perfect market for getting stuff into it right now, based on what I've seen anyway.
It's one of those things too. The more and more I get into it, it's like, no, it can't be. That can't be the answer. That's
There's from what I've seen is that there's hasn't been a lot of actual like informed design with regard to technology in the field. There's been a lot of either haphazard, really fast, or just, well, let's make a digital version of the way we've always done it on paper or something like that.
well, not only that, but yes, that's a good way of putting it. It's exactly what's happening, and for many different reasons. One of which is there's not a great there's barriers of communication between the end user and the actual people that are going to be deploying it, the people that are going to be using it at the office.
Well, you don't find like the people who know the tech side of it usually don't know much about don't know medical terminology or the basics of that side of things, and
No,
vice versa.
they don't. You're right. Which is why
that was at my last job. That was their favorite thing. They're like, you know all of how do you know all of this medical stuff? I'm like, it's because I know stuff.
Which is why I'm so happy to find myself in this position where I can play and do all this ridiculous shit and be learning things that are going to be wildly valuable in the future because of because of the environment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I left like an hour ago to go get Chipotle and I did nothing.
You know, Audra, making the I don't even know if I can say this. I was gonna say the making the transition between like thinking an omniscient third person to a different POV was difficult, but I'm like I have barely even attempted writing in it, so really I should probably write more before saying it's difficult. But I do find it somewhat confusing trying to organize the sentences.
What do you mean?
I was just like I'm trying to keep in maybe not intact, but I'm still trying to get across the general message. Like the one of the paragraphs I was reading to you the other night, I'm trying to change it so that it conveys a closer POV, but
And you're gone.
it's like the closer third person. I don't know. It seems like it would be like I want to use a more third person approach, but it almost seems like it'd be easier just to do straight POV, even though it may not flow as well. It may seem choppier. So it's like I really haven't edited much. Sorry, I'm reading this right now. So it's like I didn't make a heavy alteration to the first sentence. I just sort of reordered it. I said Mala walked out to the edge of the platform and looked down. I felt like that works for close third person. It's like I don't know. I think I just need to write more and shut the fuck up.
And if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. So here's an example. I mean, one of the sentences, she could barely, yeah, no, she saw runes in the distance. She could barely make them out. Not enough sunlight for that. That's more like the closer POV you were talking about, right? Like instead of having it be, she thought there's not enough sunlight for that, or like there's not enough sunlight for that. She thought it's like it's just a continuation of the sentence. Not enough sunlight for that. Hello? That's awkward.